What's up, carp freaks, and welcome to the it's Carp Life. Welcome to Carp Life. Before I start, I just want to say once again, a massive thank you for all your great comments, great feedback for the last video, and also your words of support for all the work I've been doing down my lake. It really is great to know that you've enjoyed watching and you found all the work I've been doing interesting. But today I am here at Westmoor Farm Fishery near Caister in Lincolnshire. Now, I have actually been here before, but I fished the specimen lake. But today I'm on the day ticket, the sandpit lake. I don't really know a great deal about this particular lake. I know there's a lot of fish in here. We've had a walk around and we've seen a few fish showing in front of a swim called Lees. So I'm going to get my kit set up in there, and that'll give me a chance to tell you what I got up to at the start of March. Well, March started pretty much the same way February finished. It was absolutely Baltic, and that really didn't help with the desilting of my lake.
Well, I'm back down the lake, but unfortunately there's no work happening down here at all today. That's because the tracks on the digger behind me are absolutely frozen solid. All that mud from the other day is as hard as concrete, so that's going nowhere. Next week I was supposed to be doing tutorials all week, but I've had to reschedule due to the bad weather. And I've actually got a couple of days off the week after that as well. So yeah, I'm in quite a lucky position there where I do think I think we'll have the time to do all the work that we need to do. But it all depends on the weather, really. I just wish this beast from the east would release its icy grip.
Finally, after a couple of days, we saw an improvement in the weather and the temperatures start to climb, which meant the tracks on the digger finally thawed out. The only problem now was the snow was also thawing, and all that surface water was running into the lake, which is now about a foot deep. That meant we couldn't really get the machines in to get the silt out until we pumped all the water back out. So it was time to call Mr and Mrs White and Old Yeller out of retirement. So with the bad weather behind us, we were able to crack on without a care in the world, until it snowed again the very next day.
Well, there was no forecast at all of this today. When I set off to go to the gym this morning, it was raining. By the time I got to the gym, there was a few snowflakes, nothing major. But this is horrific. I'm not even sure I'm going to make it there actually. Okay.
Ball bags, it's called. Well, I've just re-rigged the rods up with rig tubing to abide by the fishery rules, and because we're only here for a few hours today, I'm going to be fishing solid PVA bags. I just want to try and nick a bite, hopefully catch a carp or two, and yeah, I think a solid PVA bag presentation packed full of attraction is a great way of nicking a bite. All I'm doing at the moment is just casting around the swim. I've been told there's a shallow bar somewhere out in front of me. So I'm just casting around, having a little bit of a feel down, feeling the lead down to the bottom. And then when I found that bar, I'm just going to put it in the clip on the reel. It just saves time, you know. Like I say, we're not here for very long today. I don't want to get the leading rod out or the marker rod out. I just want to cast around, feel the lead down, get an idea of the depth and also what I'm fishing over. As you'd expect on a sand pit, everything I've found so far is sand. And then once I've found a spot of interest, I'll just put it in the clip on the reel. And then all I need to do then, put a rig on, put it in a solid bag and cast back out to that spot. I'm just about to put this rig inside a solid PVA bag. The rig itself, it's just 3.5 inches of 25-pound reflex camo braid, a size 5 wide gate beat point hook, and the hook bait is a trimmed down mini bites pop-up. I've flavoured these with some Northern Special flavouring, and I say I've trimmed them down. I've just whittled away with a pair of scissors so that they just critically balance. So the hook is just anchoring them down on the lake bed. They kind of sit like that. That way, when the PVA dissolves and you're left with just that patch of bait, the hook bait should just be visible poking up through the pile of feed. Also, I have dipped the lead, the rig, the tube and everything inside some of the roasted peanut meal. That is just to dry off all those components, so they're not damp at all, so there's no risk of me putting them inside a PVA bag and it just melting. But yeah, I'm just about to tie up the bag now. First thing I do, I just put a layer of like fine mix in the bottom of the bag. That's the Live System PVA bag mix I've got in there. I'm using the Fox Rapid PVA bag system. I just find it really easy to tie bags using it this way. So yeah, got a little layer of ground bait in the bottom. Then I put the rig in and I lower the lead in next, and I just tap the hook bait and the hook into that layer of fine ground bait with the lead. Then I put a little bit more ground bait in and just lift the lead clear so that it's not in contact with the hook. Next, I put in some pellets. The smaller the pellets you use, the better. That way they fill in any air gaps that might be in the bag. It enables you to compact that PVA bag much more. I'm using the oily bag mix, and I've also got some tiny 2mm tuna pellets in there as well. So the bag itself now is probably not even half full. I'm using a fairly small bag. It's the 60 by 130mm, so the second smallest size PVA bag that comes with the Rapid system. I just pull it up a little bit more so that just the top of the well, basically the tail rubber is just poking through the mix, and pull it tight, twist the loader and the bag, then flick all the way around, push down the loader, and nip it together to allow the bag to seal, to stick together. Hold it for a few seconds, and you can see there it's all wrapped. You don't need to wrap any PVA tape, anything like that. In the corners, I just push the corners in, and then with the little tag end, just lick and fold it over. Again, just give it a couple of seconds to set. Just do the same on the other one. There we go. Got a nice aerodynamic bag ready for casting out into this gale force wind in my face. Well, having spent so much time working down the lake, I really did want a couple of days off to spend some quality time with my kids. So that weekend I took them ice skating. Hey?
I want to try without.
You want to try without?
Really?
And I also took them to the theatre to see a play, and I got the best seat in the house.
I've got an awesome view of what's going on here.
Here are Lord and Lady Saxby in their grounds, walking with their daughter.
I don't want to play now, but I need to practice if I'm going to win my fortune.
Early the next week, I had some more fish delivered for my stock pond. Now, these are fish I'd wanted for quite some time. They're by AJS Fisheries, and I think the best way to describe them is chunks in miniature. They were only C2 fish, so 2 summers old fish, averaging 4.5 pounds, and they were absolutely awesome.
What's this one? Saddleback Lynn.
The Saddleback Lynn into its new home.
I really was so pleased with them fish. You could just see their potential. They had such wide backs and big shoulders. I really can't wait to see how they get on in the future, and I think they made a fantastic addition to the fishery.
Like someone's got like a 50 and just like shrunk it down, isn't it?
50 in miniature.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
At the start of the month, I'd been given my new challenge, and this was the first one in the new format. Now, Fox come up with 3 possible challenges, and it goes to a vote on Facebook as to which one is chosen. And the one that won by the vast majority was called Back in the Day, and this involved catching 2 carp, one of which being a 20-pounder, on rigs, tackle, baits that I would have used when I first started carp fishing, so late 80s, early 90s. And the beauty of this new format is it does give me a chance to prepare. And with this challenge in particular, it definitely needed some prior preparation. The first thing I needed to do was go about trying to source some of the tackle, rig components that I would have used to make up my rigs in the late 80s, early 90s. And that was actually a challenge in itself. But I went to my local tackle shop. I managed to get quite a few bits from there, and a few other bits I managed to mail order, and eventually managed to get something more or less like I would have used when I was first started carp fishing. Now, when it came to using the baits, I think a lot of people might have thought I'd be using things like potatoes and chickpeas and things like that. But the early 90s was very much the HNV revolution. And it was a time when Richie McDonald had just caught 2 40-pounders in a season, won the Drennan Cup. And I remember reading articles about that, and he was using boilies, and I very quickly in my carp fishing career was also using boilies. And I wanted to try and recreate the same sort of baits I would have been using back then. So I got together a variety of base mix ingredients, simple ingredients like soya, semolina, lactalbumin, a few other bits and pieces. And the next few nights in my kitchen were spent putting together various flavour combinations, again using all sort of old school classics like Tutti Frutti, strawberry, like a Scopex as well. And it was quite laborious, but after a few nights I got together a few mixes I was really happy with, and I was convinced were going to do me well on the challenge.
Well, it's 11:15 and I've just made this batch of awesome looking washed out pink pop-ups, again with like an old school flavour. I've mixed the ultra strawberry essence with the Jeff Kemp's evaporated milk and ice cream, so it's like strawberry ice cream flavour, and it smells incredible. This has always been my favourite colour really, this washed out pink. I don't know what it is about it, I just love that colour. It's caught me so many fish and I've got so much confidence in using it.
Well, having been awake until the early hours of the morning, rolling up more batches of bait, it was an early start because I was heading off down to Cuttle Mill in the West Midlands to meet Harry to film the challenge. Now this was a challenge I was so excited for, and for this old school theme I'd picked a venue that I thought was very befitting. Cuttle Mill is a place absolutely steeped in carp fishing history, and what perhaps made it even more special for me was one video in particular, carp fishing with Des Taylor, filmed at Cuttle Mill. As a kid, I must have watched this video over and over again. So in a way, just being at the venue kind of took me back to my early carp fishing days, and I absolutely couldn't wait to get started. With the challenge underway, things couldn't have got off to a much better start. Well, been fishing about an hour, and only gone and got one. It's a nice chunky fish as well. Look at that fella. Where's he going? The challenge is to catch 2 fish on old school tactics, and one of them has to be a 20. I reckon that's pretty close to being a 20. Pretty close. So here we are, an hour into the session, and the challenge is well and truly up and running. Got my first Cuttle Mill carp here, £20, 9 ounces. Yeah! So, 2 fish in half an hour, it's kicking right off. Check this out, 26.5 £, awesome looking common. 3rd fish of the session. It's been an amazing start to this challenge, but I still haven't passed. So if you've seen the challenge, you'll know how the session progressed. If you haven't seen it, then there's a bit of a spoiler coming up now. The challenge was to catch 2 fish, one of them had to be a 20-pounder, on 2 different tactics I would have used back in the day. So having caught fish on the pop-up setup, I then switched over to a bottom bait with some homemade tutti frutti bottom baits, and things just kicked off more or less straight away. Ended up getting a double take, 2 fish in the net, and that was it. Challenge passed within about 5 hours of being there, which was an unusual situation to be in. I've never had one wrapped up and done that quickly before, but it was quite nice because we had 48 hours at the venue.
What number's that?
6 at the session. £23, 1 ounce, 3rd over 20. Been epic, hasn't it?
Yeah. Nice little pop-ups you got rolled. They'd be really nice if you could, if they were available to buy.
Would be nice.
That would be great. If you could buy a pot of those pop-ups.
It'd be priceless.
Priceless. Probably about £6.99, but priceless.
And I certainly had no intentions of going home just because it was a pass. So it was nice. The pressure was off. I was able just to fish, relax, and also Harry got the rods out too. Where are you going? What's up?
Where is it?
Oh yeah, no, you're right, my left-hand rod. I forgot that, yeah, I chugged
Right,
it well.
you got a bite on your right.
I can't have, you must have got me. Oh, I've got a bite. Hey, I've got one as well.
Here, give me the camera, I'll film you. What do we do now?
Double bubble.
Double bubble. Mine's a bigger one.
Yeah. Oh, nice one, mate.
Yeah.
By the end of the session, I'd managed to land 10 carp, including 4 over 20 pound, topped off by a 26.5 pound common. So the challenge was well and truly knocked out the park. It's probably my favourite challenge to date. It's one of the most memorable winter sessions I've had. And I think what made it even more special was right at the dying moments of the session, Harry hooked a fish. Now Harry had wanted to catch a cuttle carp just as much as I had. And while he was playing that fish, one of my rods ripped off as well. And we ended up with a double bubble. Harry landed his fish and a few seconds later, mine went in the net as well. So I was absolutely made up for Harry. It was just such an awesome end to a brilliant session. But just when we thought things couldn't get any better, this happened.
So that's the end of the challenge. We're just packing up. And Harry has had a mega find. Explain.
Can I say what I just said it was?
Yes.
I can't say that it was Des Taylor's wank sock.
You just did. Let's have a look at this. I need to get some close-up action of this. Oh, that's definitely it. That's definitely it. That
It's been there forever.
has been there for 20. That is definitely Des Taylor's wanking sock. You can see the moss has started to grow over it. I think you should get that on eBay. Actually, no, we won't take it off site because it's part of history, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
So,
That's why
no.
it's been left here for years.
Oh my god, I need to touch it. No, I'm not going to touch it.
Having been away filming for a couple of days, I couldn't wait to get down the lake and see what work had been done while I'd been gone.
Well, I've been gone for a few days filming the challenge, and while I've been away, the lads have been cracking on. The transformation is incredible. Where I am stood now was a spit of land that jutted out, and there was one on the opposite side as well. And those two spits kind of separated the lake into two halves almost. Well, those have been removed, so it is now one lake. We actually used to call the lake, we used to refer to like the back half being the old half and the front half being the new half, so we even referred to it as being two halves, if you like, whereas now it is one lake. Because there's now more water and more depth, they have banked up soil over there. That is a narrow bank which drops off. It's quite a high bank and it drops off down to the stream, and that was like a potential weak point really. So a lot of clay is being banked up over there to reinforce that bank, because of the extra volume of water that's going to be here. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it's looking.
While I was at the lake, there was 2 small holes that were full of water that needed draining down. It was actually the only areas that had any water in, the rest had been completely drained. Now when we drained them, what was very interesting was the silt in the bottom of these deep holes was completely different in makeup to the silt anywhere else on the lake. Most of the lake, the silt was real thick, claggy, and you had a job walking through it in waders. Whereas the silt in these 2 deep holes was almost like a thick gravy. And it absolutely stank of rotten eggs. Even before the water had been completely drained, you could smell it. It was disgusting. And these 2 spots used to receive quite a lot of angling pressure. When you'd cast out and feel your lead down, it'd go down with such a satisfying thud. You wouldn't for 1 minute think you'd landed on silt. but that's because the silt was so thin, a lead would just fall straight through it and you'd feel it touch down on the clay beneath. And that might explain why these spots haven't produced a fish in nearly 2 years. You cast out, feel the thud, think your rig and everything's presented nicely, when in reality it was probably beneath a foot of jet black, putrid, dead silt. The following week it was time for my first tutorial sessions of the year. Now these were meant to happen on the first week of March, but because of the beast from the east I had to postpone. Typically, once again, the weather was looking pretty grim for the week ahead, so I'd chosen to go to East Elf Lakes near Peterborough, as this is a venue that's more than capable of producing fish even in the toughest of conditions. It proved to be a very tough 48 hours. The cold weather that we'd had over the previous couple of days had just knocked the lake for six, and there was just no signs of anything feeding at all. It was looking like it was going to end in a blank, but it came good right at the very end. With less than an hour of this session remaining, Simon managed to hook a fish on an all black zigger line, a fish 2 foot under the surface. While that fish was in the net and was sorting out the weighing equipment, my zig ripped off as well. While we were sorting out the weighing and camera equipment, Brad managed to bag one as well. He stalked it off the top on a little bit of free-lined crust just a few feet from the bank. Proper nice angling considering it was such a hard frost that morning. So we ended up with a fish each in the dying moments of the session, and it was an absolutely brilliant way to get the tutorials up and running for the year. From Peterborough, I headed straight back up the A1 to my lake because I had a phone call telling me that all the work was finally done. So the diggers and dumpers have just left. It's taken 5.5 weeks, but work is finally over. And you know what? I am absolutely buzzing. It's been a lot bigger job than I thought it was going to be. But the end product, I am so thrilled with it. We've got all that silt out and I've been able to do a few improvements and do things that I wish I'd done first time round. Actually, this is a good example. This area in front of me, the bank just behind that is a narrow bank and it's the weakest part of the lake. It's something that I've always had concerns over. It's quite a deep, it's quite a steep drop down into the stream, and occasionally we have had leaks in the past where the water has seeped through the bank, and it has been a weak point that has concerned me. But now we've kind of made that like a dam wall. We've banked clay up there and shelved it down to protect that bank against the increased water pressure because the lake is now deeper and a larger surface area. So that'll protect that bank now. Obviously all the silt's gone. We've also, this area in front of me here, well, over there, that was like a spit of land that came out into the lake. And all this water, all this area in front of me was just shallow water. It was only probably 2 foot deep. It was a shallow bar, and that kind of split the lake into two, and it came to another spit of land here. All this would have been a bank. So I've kind of made the lake one lake now. It used to always be. It always used to be two lakes really. We used to refer to it as being like the old lake, the original lake, and the new lake. Whereas now, there's none of that. It feels like one lake. Also dug a few deeper areas, a few deeper holes. I'm just so thrilled. I'm just so thrilled. It's we got there in the end. Now I say that everything's finished. That isn't actually quite the case. There's still a lot of work to be done. And I don't just mean the clean-up operation, the swim building and all that. There's no point in us removing all this silt
if we're just going to be back in the same position 5-10 years down the road where it builds up again. Now, silt deposits build up through various means. It can be just silt can build up just due to dust and things like that being blown in by the wind. It can be rotting vegetation such as weed and leaves and things like that, or it can just be just general crap, fish poo, rotting down bait and pellets and things like that. So I mentioned there about the build-up of leaves. One of the jobs I need to do is to remove a number of trees, deciduous trees around the lake, to reduce the amount of leaf matter going in. There is a wood on one bank of the lake. Most of it's pine, but there are a few deciduous trees. There's also quite a few trees around the lakeside. So that's the next big job. And as soon as the ground dries out enough to be able to work safely, that's what I'll be doing.
Having spent a day at home, it was time once again for more tutorial sessions. This time on Elsons Lake on the Stanwick Lakes complex in Northamptonshire. Because this was the first spring-like day we'd had in quite some time, I decided to go all out with zigs, and it didn't take long before we had some action. After hooking that fish, it came in really easy, and it wasn't long before it was just underneath the rod tips. And after seeing the fish, I was convinced it was a fish called scarp, which is the biggest fish in the lake. After that though, the fish went absolutely mental. It went on about 3 or 4 40-yard runs, and having seen the size of the fish, that definitely made for a really nerve-wracking fight.
Yes! Nicely done, mate.
Oh no, it's the fish, it's the tatty comment. It's been out for like nearly a year. Oh, it's a 30-pounder.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a 30-pounder.
Yay!
Well done, sir.
Cheers, mate. I had a feeling it was a big fish the moment I hooked it. Maybe just wasn't quite expecting it to be this big though. 36 pound, 11 ounces. One awesome start to the session. Hopefully Tom can get one now, eh?
Fingers crossed.
I was absolutely buzzing with that fish, and that's why Elsons is one of my favourite day ticket lakes in the country. It's home to awesome old English carp like that, and that's actually my second biggest fish I've ever caught out of Elsons, and my biggest ever on a zig, except for an 80-pound catfish, which doesn't really count. But all I needed now was for Tom to catch one. But unfortunately, an hour and a half later, one of my zigs ripped off again. Just into darkness, I received another take, and once again it was a black Ziggerliners doing the damage.
Check this one out, 23 pounds, 6 ounces, nighttime zig muncher. Awesome looking fish. Really happy with this one.
But for me, the highlight of the session was the next morning, seeing Tom hooked into a fish.
Tom with a new PB, 2714, on a cold, wet, miserable March day. Come on the static lakes.
Great narration there by Phil.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. No, it was great. Save me your job. That fish turned out to be a new PB for Tom. £27, 14 ounces, smashing his old PB by nearly £6. And I think I was just as buzzing about the whole thing as he was. Yeah. From Stannick Lakes, I headed over to Lewis Porter's house, and he was putting me up for the night because the next day we were both attending the Sheltons of Peterborough Open Day. So this is a lads' night in with Lewis Porter. What we're watching? There we go.
Yahoo, old school. Presented by Rob Malin.
Is it?
He's Carpy.
He is.
I like his t-shirt.
That is a cracking t-shirt.
Them Yankee fish must have been easy to catch if you didn't have to be very camo.
Why are you hiding that me? Essex's favourite carp angler, aren't we? And star of big hit carp fishing. Yeah?
Yeah, 2000 and I don't know.
Yeah.
2 or something like that.
I think it's, yeah, that looks probably about as old as this table, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, I would go along with that, Mark. Yes, I think you're probably correct now. It might have even been pre this table.
About 70 or something like that. So I banged it out.
The open day itself was great. It was really busy and it was fantastic to speak to so many carp freaks. Well, I think it's fair to say that March has been a very productive month. All the desilting work at my lake is finished, and apart from the weather being a little bit of a stumbling block, things really couldn't have gone much smoother. And I can't wait to move forward now, get the water back in and move the fish over from the stock pond. I got the challenge up and running with a flying pass. A flying pass? Can you have a flying pass? Challenge up and running in style with a... I got the first challenge of the year up and running in style with a pass, and not just a pass, it was a pass with flying colours and my most memorable session in a very long time. My tutorials got off to an absolutely brilliant start, and I even managed to catch a few fish along the way too. Hopefully that will continue into April, so join me then to see how I get on.